All right. It's Sunday. I didn't have a video for this week, and I didn't really feel like reviewing anything. I There's nothing that I haven't already talked about that I particularly feel that passionate about talking about. At least not by myself. Like I want to watch some stuff with some other people and have someone to bounce off of. But instead, what I thought I'd do today is I would tell an interesting to me. And I know I've told this on other channels and in panels and stuff like that. But I love weirdo stories about things that go down on film sets that you're like, holy shit, like that happened, and the one that I was thinking about today was about Klaus Kinski, who's a notorious German actor. He's long dead now. He's a notorious insane person, legitimately mentally ill person. You have to look no further than the documentary about his relationship with Werner Herzog, best frenemy. And while the dude was an incredible actor, I mean, look no further than something like Fritz Coraldo, um, and even the movie we're going to talk about now, which is Crawl Space. The man was a very, very talented actor, and can you separate the art from the artist? And that comes up a lot anymore in the age of social media, where we find out just how terrible everyone is. Everybody. In the 1980s, Charles Band was producing the film Crawl Space, which is about a serial killer in this apartment building, and he goes into this crawl space and he sits and he plays Russian roulette with himself, and he's because he's questioning with God, like, am I wrong in doing this? And every time that Jesus doesn't take the wheel, he's like, well, I'm gonna keep doing it then. David Schmoller was the director of that movie. He was a fairly novice director. They filmed in the same sets where they had done Troll, the John Carr Buechler film with, it's Sonny Bono and Julie Louis-Dreyfus, and with Harry Potter, because the Harry Potter and Harry Potter Jr. are the names of our two main characters. Michael Moriarty plays Harry Potter. And he's, in Harry Potter Jr. is a little boy and drawn into a world of magic and trolls and singing mushrooms, and all this kind of stuff. So, not saying that J.K. Rowling isn't a terrible human being who's just awful to the gay community, but also, maybe a plagiarist. I don't know. And being someone who's known for plagiarism, I can say that. But yeah, so they'd finished that movie. They'd gone into the second movie, which is Crawl Space. The American producers, were able to get Klaus Kinski. Kinski was known for turning down movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark, because he told Steven Spielberg that it was the worst script he had ever read. He was supposed to play Toth, one of the bad guys. Are we allowed to still say Nazis are bad guys? I know sometimes in the comments people get upset when you say that Nazis were bad guys. So I think they're bad guys. He turned it down to do this movie called Venom, not the Tom Hardy movie, this killer snake movie. Really, he got paid more money than playing Toad, but also there's no way a dude with an ego like that would have been able to survive on a set with Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Harrison Ford, Hollywood's golden boys. Like Kinski wouldn't have been the center of attention. And because of that, he would have lost his fucking mind. You look at the documentary about Werner Herzog with the making of something like Fritz Coraldo, where like people on the set got killed and were horribly injured and lost limbs and stuff like that. And when Kinski was not getting the attention that he believed he deserved, he would throw tantrums on set, and it's well documented. This was just a bad dude all along. Like people I know had this like vibe that like he was a punk rock actor because he was like didn't give a fuck about anything and fuck the establishment and all that kind of stuff. But like only one of his kids went to his funeral, and after his passing, his oldest daughter said some things about him that were corroborated by his other kids, which is like, dude's not a fucking hero, dude's not punk rock, dude's a total piece of shit. Does it justify the story I'm about to tell? I don't know. Yes, to me it does. David Schmoller is the director of this movie. He's a pretty novice director working for Charles Band. He's over in Italy making this movie, and he said that after 3 days of filming, they were already 2 days behind. Kinski starting fist fights with people on the crew. He's being sexually inappropriate to actors on set. They they said, like, we got to get rid of this guy. We can't keep this guy. So Schmoller contacts, I'm assuming Charles Band, and Charles Band's response was, bummer. We have to keep him because, the distribution company, his name is contingent on distribution. So they have to go back to filming. And he's just making everybody's lives more and more miserable. So eventually the Italian producers pull aside David Schmoller, and they say, well, we have a plan on what we're going to do for this. We're going to just kill him. And David Schmoller's like, what? No, he's like, yeah, we're going to put a real bullet in the gun, and he's, I'm paraphrasing here, basically going to put an asshole where his face was, and we'll collect the insurance money, and no fuss, no muss. So Schmoller's like, no, we can't kill Klaus Kinski. Well, that gets back to Kinski, that the Italian producers were going to do this, and that the director took the bullet out of the gun. And you would think a normal, healthy human brain would be like, oh my God, thank you, director, for making sure that I didn't accidentally put an asshole where my face was. Instead, this turned into a full frontal assault on David Schmoller by Klaus Kinski, who took all of his aggression out on the director, which led to the famous, the director would call action. Kinski would just start screaming and start yelling at the camera and saying that, I've made X amount of movies and they always yell action at me, and I will no longer respond to action. So he's like, well, Klaus, what do you want then? And he was just like, Klaus, or go. So, okay, Klaus, go. Okay, and they tried that for a bunch of times, but then that wasn't good enough. He wouldn't do that either. And then it got to cut, and it was like, I've made X amount of movies, I will no longer respond to cut. What would you like to do then? When I am done acting, I will stop acting. He made this dude's life an absolute living hell. There's a great documentary you can find online. I think it was on the Crawl Space DVD that Troma put out, maybe, or Full Moon. It was one of the two, called Please Kill Klaus Kinski, and it's more in depth about this story. But when Klaus Kinski died, Schmoller's quotes were in his obituary in all the newspapers on this story and what a fucking disaster all of this was. And it's insane to think, like, well, I know how we'll deal with this problem. We'll just, and yeah, so if you do any of your own research about Klaus Kinski, like, yes, he was an incredible actor, but he was insane. And not in like a fun, like Andy Kaufman, crazy kind of wild, he was his own guy, or, whatever. No, this was a sick, sadistic, mentally ill person who just so happened to be a good actor. And unfortunately, that's the case with a lot of actors. Is there's this level of insecurity and this level of vindictiveness inside of them, which is allowed to fester when you are good at your job. Look at anyone in any position of power, actors, politicians, athletes, whatever. Anyone, you're allowed to be a fucking monster if you have that level of clout. Look at a lot of YouTubers, I've met quite a few of them. I've worked with quite a few of them. They're fucking monsters, but no one's going to tell them no, because they don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want to, stop the flow of whatever it is they're bringing in. Again, they can't get rid of this guy because the American distribution says you need him. So, it would have just made more sense to the Italians to kill him. And it's, I don't know. I didn't have a review to do. I didn't want to review Crawl Space, but I wanted to tell this weird fucking story, because the first time I remember reading about it, I was like, that can't be true. And then I watched the documentary. I was like, holy shit, that's fucking true. That is insane, man. And how different things would have been, like, had he just said, to the producers, like, or look the other way to the Italian producers. What a different world we would have lived in. But yeah, so that's this week's video. It's short, it's sweet. It's just another fucking weird, wild story about the world of filmmaking. And how different would the world be if Klaus Kinski was in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Because, I mean, he played along with, the Italian directors when he did, like, the Few More Dollars trilogy and all that. That's kind of the stuff that I had first seen him in. But, you know, and then you see the Herzog stuff. You see, I mean, Nosferatu the vampire, like, you know, he's incredible in that movie, and I'm very much looking forward to the Eggers remake. But you just go like, this is like, was he a genius, or was it all, you know, was it all just pomp and circumstance and smoke and mirrors and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. I try not to think about the guy too much. Once I found out about the stuff about what he had done to his oldest daughter, I was just like, this is a sick human being, and not someone who should be celebrated even for, you know, their accomplishments. But that's just me. I have a very hard time separating the art from the artist. Um, but I just thought that this crawl space story, and imagine imagine getting killed over a Charles Band movie. You know, that's another one that'd be fucking crazy. Like, but yeah, so that's the story of Kill Klaus Kinski and Crawl Space. And if you have any weird film stories that you like that you want me to cover, or you want me to tell me about them, tell me down in the comments for it, because I don't know. I was thinking about like, what are some other like crazy film making stories that I can tell, because there's tons of, you know, like the John Landis like Twilight Zone thing. I know I've referenced that a bunch of times, but yeah, I don't know. This is my cheap in lieu of a movie review. Uh, you know, sitting on my floor just so I have a video to put out on Wednesday. So yeah, kill Klaus Kinski.